The crystal chandelier above the ballroom caught the light from 1,000 angles, scattering diamonds across the marble floor. My champagne glass was sweating condensation onto my palm as I stood at the edge of the Vanderbilt Hotel's main event space, watching Silicon Valley's elite network and posture. Another tech summit. Another evening of calculated smiles and strategic conversations. I adjusted the strap of my black evening gown. Valentino, purchased specifically because it said, "I belong here," without screaming desperation. At 32, I'd built next-gen solutions from a garage startup into a company valued at $300 million. I'd earned my place in this room. But that didn't make these events any less exhausting. Riley Adams? A voice beside me, smooth as aged whiskey. "I've been hoping to meet you." I turned and forgot how to breathe. The man standing next to me was devastating in the way that dangerous things often are. Tall, easily 6'3", with shoulders that filled out his tailored tuxedo in a way that suggested he knew exactly what a gym was for. His dark hair was styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips that curved into a slight smile as he watched me try to remember how words worked. But it was his eyes that held me. Storm gray, intense, assessing me with the kind of focus that made my skin prickle with awareness. "Have we met?" I managed, proud that my voice stayed steady despite my racing heart. "Not yet." He extended his hand. "Roman." Just Roman. No last name, no company affiliation, no context. His hand engulfed mine, warm and calloused in a way that didn't match his expensive suit. This wasn't a man who spent his days behind a desk. "What brings you to a tech summit, Roman?" I asked, taking a sip of champagne to cover the fact that I didn't want to let go of his hand. "Business interests." His smile deepened, revealing a dimple that should have looked boyish but somehow made him more dangerous. "And the hope of meeting interesting people. You're the CEO of Next Gen Solutions, correct? I've been following your work. The AI security platform you're developing is impressive." I raised an eyebrow. "You have a background in cybersecurity?" "Let's say I have a vested interest in security." Something flickered in those gray eyes. In all its forms. The way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't typical networking small talk. There was something underneath, something that made me hyper-aware of how close he was standing, how his cologne, something woody and expensive, seemed to wrap around me. "Are you here with anyone?" The question escaped before I could stop it, bolder than I usually allowed myself to be. "No." His gaze held mine. "Are you?" "No." The single word hung between us, weighted with possibility. Around us, the party continued, waiters circulating with canapes, clusters of executives discussing valuations and venture capital, but it all faded into background noise. "Would you like to get out of here?" Roman asked, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I know a place, quieter, better conversation." Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings. I didn't know this man. Didn't know his last name, his company, his intentions. I'd built my career on calculated risks and careful decision-making. This was neither calculated nor careful. "Yes," I said. His smile was pure triumph. He took my champagne glass and set it on a passing waiter's tray, then offered his arm. I slipped my hand through it, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric, and let him guide me toward the exit. The November air hit us as we stepped outside, cold enough to raise goosebumps on my bare arms. Roman immediately shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was still warm from his body and smelled like him. "Where are we going?" I asked as a black car, sleek, expensive, something Italian that probably cost more than my first office lease, pulled up to the curb. "Somewhere we can talk without interruption." He opened the door for me. "Do you trust me?" I should have said no. Should have made some excuse and gone back inside to safety and predictability. but there was something in his eyes, some pull I couldn't name and didn't want to resist. "For tonight," I answered. "I trust you for tonight." The drive took us through Manhattan's glittering streets to a building I didn't recognize in Tribeca. Roman's hand stayed on the small of my back as we entered, his touch burning through the thin fabric of my dress. We took a private elevator to the top floor, and when the doors opened, I stepped into a penthouse that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the lights stretching out like a carpet of stars. The space was masculine but refined. Dark leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost a fortune, a bar that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. "This is yours?" I asked, moving to the windows. "One of my properties." He moved to the bar, his movements fluid and confident. "Bourbon? Or would you prefer wine?" "Bourbon. Neat." He poured 2 glasses and brought one to me, his fingers brushing mine as I took it. The contact sent electricity up my arm. "To unexpected meetings," he said, raising his glass. "To calculated risks." I clinked mine against his and took a sip. It was excellent, smooth and complex with notes of caramel and oak. "So, Roman with no last name, are you going to tell me what you actually do? Because I'm fairly certain you're not in tech." His laugh was low and genuine. Perceptive. "No, I'm not in tech. I'm in import-export. Family business." "Import-export." I turned to face him fully. "That's wonderfully vague. Some things are better left vague." He moved closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "At least for tonight. Tonight I'd rather know about you. Riley Adams, self-made CEO, Forbes 30 under 30, champion of women in tech. What does someone like that do when she's not building an empire?" "Honestly?" I took another sip of bourbon, emboldened by the alcohol and the darkness and the way he was looking at me. "I don't remember. It's been 5 years of 18-hour days, investor meetings, product launches. I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to." "And what do you want?" The question was quiet, intense. "Right now, in this moment, what do you want, Riley?" I set down my glass and looked up at him. At this beautiful, dangerous stranger who'd appeared in my carefully controlled life like a comet, who made me feel reckless and alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. "You," I said simply. "Tonight, I want you." His eyes darkened, pupils dilating. "You're sure?" In answer, I rose on my toes and kissed him. For a heartbeat, he was still. Then his control shattered. His hands came up to frame my face, tilting my head for better access, as he kissed me back with a hunger that matched my own. He tasted like bourbon and promise, and when his tongue swept into my mouth, I made a sound I'd never made before. Desperate and needy and completely honest. He walked me backward until my back hit the window, the glass cool against my overheated skin. His hands found the zipper of my dress, sliding it down with agonizing slowness. The Valentino pooled at my feet, leaving me in nothing but black lace and heels. "Beautiful," he breathed, his eyes traveling over me with an intensity that should have made me self-conscious. Instead, I felt powerful. "You're absolutely beautiful, Riley." I reached for his bow tie, fumbling with the knot until he helped me, shrugging out of his shirt to reveal a chest that made my mouth go dry. He was all lean muscle and smooth skin, with a small scar above his heart that I traced with my fingers. "How did you get this?" I asked. A reminder that not all risks pay off. His hand caught mine, bringing it to his lips. "But some do." What followed was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Roman was attentive and demanding in equal measure, learning what made me gasp and shiver, pushing me higher until I shattered in his arms with his name on my lips. And when he finally claimed me, it felt less like sex and more like recognition. as though some part of me had been waiting my entire life for this moment. For him. Afterward, we lay tangled in his sheets, my head on his chest as his fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. The city lights painted shadows across the ceiling, and I felt sated and peaceful in a way I couldn't remember ever feeling before. "Stay," he murmured against my hair. "Stay tonight." I should have left. Should have gathered my Valentino and my dignity and called a car. But his arms were warm, and his heartbeat was steady beneath my ear. And for once in my carefully planned life, I wanted to just be. To exist in this moment without thinking about tomorrow. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll stay." I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and an empty bed. For a moment, I was disoriented, struggling to place where I was. Then memory came flooding back. The gala, Roman, the night we'd shared. Heat rose to my cheeks as I remembered exactly what we'd done, how many times, how thoroughly he'd learned my body. I sat up, pulling the sheet around me, and looked around the bedroom. No sign of Roman. His tuxedo was gone from where it had been discarded on the floor. My dress was draped over a chair, my shoes placed neatly beside it. "Roman," I called out. Silence. I got up and padded to the bathroom, finding my reflection in the mirror, hair tangled, lips swollen, a mark on my neck where Roman had sucked hard enough to bruise. I looked thoroughly ravished. I looked alive. But when I explored the penthouse, I found it empty. No note, no message, nothing. Just my dress and shoes and the memory of storm-gray eyes promising me everything. I dressed quickly, my hands shaking slightly as I zipped up the Valentino. This was fine. This was probably normal for encounters like this. One night, no complications, no expectations. Except I'd wanted more. Had already been imagining seeing him again, learning his last name, figuring out if whatever this was could survive the harsh light of day. The doorman downstairs called me a car without comment, and I made the walk of shame back to my apartment in last night's evening gown and smudged makeup. My phone had 17 missed calls and twice as many messages, all work-related, all urgent, all reminders that I had a company to run, and a life that didn't include mysterious strangers who disappeared in the morning. I threw myself back into work with single-minded focus. Investor meetings, product development, strategic planning. I told myself the night with Roman had been exactly what I needed. A release. A reminder that I was still a woman with desires outside the boardroom. Nothing more. But at night, alone in my bed, I could still feel his hands on my skin, could still hear his voice murmuring my name, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something important, something I'd never even known I was looking for. 3 weeks passed, then 4. The memory should have faded, should have become just another story I didn't tell at business dinners. Instead, it grew sharper, more vivid, until I found myself touching the faint mark on my neck that had long since faded, and wishing I'd asked for more than just his first name. It was the morning sickness that finally forced me to pay attention to the signs I'd been ignoring. The exhaustion I'd attributed to long hours, the tenderness in my breasts I'd blamed on stress, the fact that my period was now 6 weeks late. I stared at the pregnancy test in my bathroom, watching the second line appear with a clarity that felt like a punch to the gut. Positive. I was pregnant. With a stranger's child. A man whose last name I didn't know, who I had no way of contacting, who'd disappeared without a trace. I sank to the bathroom floor, my back against the cold tile, and tried to process what this meant. I was a CEO. I had a company to run, investors to answer to, a reputation to maintain. I couldn't be pregnant by a one-night stand whose last name I didn't even know, but I was. And despite the fear and the complications and the absolute insanity of the situation, as I placed my hand over my still flat stomach, I felt something unexpected. Hope. I scheduled the first prenatal appointment under an assumed name at a clinic in Brooklyn, far from my usual haunts in Manhattan. Paranoia, maybe, but I'd built my company by being cautious, and this situation required more caution than I'd ever needed before. Dr. Chen was a kind woman in her 50s, who didn't ask questions when I paid cash and used my middle name. The ultrasound confirmed what the home tests had already told me. 8 weeks pregnant, due date in late June. Healthy heartbeat, single baby. "Do you have support?" Dr. Chen asked gently, her eyes on my bare ring finger. "Family? The father?" "The father isn't in the picture," I said, the words tasting bitter. "And I can handle this on my own. I've handled everything else on my own." She nodded, but her expression suggested she'd heard that before and knew how quickly confidence could crumble under the weight of single parenthood. She sent me home with prenatal vitamins and a follow-up appointment scheduled for 4 weeks out. I should have felt relieved. Should have been making plans, figuring out how to balance a pregnancy with running a company, preparing for the reality of becoming a mother. Instead, I found myself obsessing over Roman. Who was he? Where was he? And did he have any right to know about this baby? The rational answer was no. He'd left without a trace. He'd made it clear that one night was all he wanted. I owed him nothing. But late at night, touching my stomach where our child was growing, I couldn't shake the feeling that he deserved to know. That maybe, just maybe, he'd left for reasons that had nothing to do with wanting to forget me. I hired a private investigator. Mark Henderson was discreet, expensive, and came highly recommended by my corporate lawyer for background checks on potential business partners. I gave him everything I had. The first name Roman, the address of the Tribeca penthouse, a physical description that made him raise his eyebrows slightly. "This isn't much to go on," Mark said, sitting across from me in my office. "Roman is a common enough name, and if he owns property in Tribeca, he's likely wealthy enough to value his privacy. It could take weeks to track him down, if we can at all." "Do your best," I said. "Money is no object." He nodded and left, and I tried to focus on the quarterly earnings report in front of me. But the numbers blurred together, and I found myself touching my stomach again, a gesture that was becoming habit. 3 days later, Mark called me with an urgency that made my stomach clench. "Ms. Adams, I need to see you immediately. Not at your office, somewhere public." We met at a coffee shop in Greenwich Village, Mark sliding into the booth across from me with a manila folder clutched in his hands. His face was pale, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "What did you find?" I asked. "Riley. Can I call you Riley?" He didn't wait for an answer. "I need you to understand something. The man you're looking for, the one you described, I found him. But this isn't... You need to be very careful here." He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the table. My breath caught in my throat. It was Roman, emerging from a black car, flanked by 2 men in suits who looked like they were made of concrete and violence. But it was the newspaper clipping beneath that made my blood run cold. "Roman Caruso," Mark said quietly. "One of 3 men who control organized crime in New York. His family has been in the business for 4 generations. Import-export, like he probably told you. But we're talking about moving everything from stolen art to weapons to people. The FBI has been trying to build a case against him for years, but he's smart. Careful. Nothing sticks." I stared at the photograph, my mind refusing to process what he was telling me. Roman. My Roman, who'd held me so gently, who'd made me feel safe and desired and seen. A mafia boss. "There's more," Mark continued, and his expression grew even graver. "He's engaged to Alessandra Vitale, daughter of Marco Vitale, who controls the territory south of Canal Street. It's a strategic alliance, been in the works for 2 years. The wedding is scheduled for next spring." The world tilted, engaged, He had a fiancée. That night we'd shared, it had meant nothing to him because he already belonged to someone else. "I'm sorry," Mark said, and he genuinely sounded it. "I don't know what your connection is to this man, but my advice? Walk away. Forget you ever met him. Men like Roman Caruso, they're dangerous in ways you can't imagine." I thanked him, paid him double his fee for the discretion, and made him promise to destroy all copies of his research. Then I went home, locked myself in my bathroom, and threw up until there was nothing left. Pregnant with a Mafia boss's baby. A Mafia boss who was engaged to another woman. A Mafia boss who disappeared without a trace and clearly had no intention of ever seeing me again. I couldn't tell anyone. Couldn't risk anyone finding out and the information getting back to Roman or his world. I was on my own, just like I'd always been. I threw myself into work with renewed intensity, using the demands of the company to avoid thinking about the impossible situation I was in. Board meetings, product launches, investor calls. I was building something that would support me and my child. Something that had nothing to do with Roman Caruso and his dangerous world. It was 2 weeks later when I realized I was being followed. At first I thought it was paranoia. A black SUV that seemed to appear whenever I left the office. A man in a coffee shop who looked away too quickly when I glanced his direction. But I hadn't built a successful company by ignoring my instincts, and my instincts were screaming that something was wrong. I varied my routes home, started taking cabs instead of walking, paid attention to the faces around me, and I kept seeing the same car, the same men, always at a distance but always there. Someone was watching me, and I had a terrible suspicion I knew who. The confirmation came on a Thursday evening. I was working late, alone in my office on the 20th floor of NextGen's building. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, and I was enjoying the quiet, the chance to focus without interruption. The knock on my office door made me look up, annoyed at the interruption. Probably the night janitor, asking if I needed anything before they cleaned. But when I called "come in," it wasn't the janitor who entered. It was Roman. He looked exactly as I remembered. Devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit, his dark hair styled back, those storm gray eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. But there was something different now. A hardness I hadn't seen before, a tension in his shoulders that spoke of barely controlled emotion. "Hello, Riley," he said, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. I stood, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach before I caught myself and dropped it to my side. "How did you get in here? This building has security. Security can be bypassed with the right incentive." He moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you." My voice was colder than I felt. "You made it clear that night was a one-time thing when you disappeared without a word. That wasn't—" He stopped, his jaw tightening. "It's complicated." "Is your fiancé part of that complication?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Alessandra Vitale. Does she know you spend your free time sleeping with strangers?" Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that I'd done my homework. "So you know who I am." "I know what you are." I moved around my desk, needing the barrier between us. "A criminal. A liar. Someone I should have run from the moment I met you. And yet you didn't." He was close now. Too close. The scent of his cologne bringing back memories I'd been trying to suppress. "You came with me willingly. You spent the night in my bed. You felt what I felt, Riley. Don't pretend otherwise." "What you felt?" I laughed, the sound harsh. "What exactly did you feel, Roman? Besides conquest? Was I just another acquisition? A way to pass the time while your fiancé was out of town?" His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not painfully, but firm enough that I couldn't pull away. "Don't," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Don't reduce that night to something cheap. What happened between us was a mistake. I pulled my wrist free. One I'm not interested in repeating. So if that's why you're here, you can leave. That's not why I'm here. His eyes dropped to where my hand had rested on my stomach moments before. I'm here because my men have been watching you for 3 weeks, Riley. And they've noticed some interesting patterns. Doctor's appointments in Brooklyn under an assumed name. Prenatal vitamins delivered to your apartment. A very sudden interest in researching my background. My blood ran cold. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting you. His voice was firm. There's a difference. Protecting me from what? From the consequences of being seen with me. He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. That night at the gala, Riley, we were photographed together, leaving together. My enemies, and I have many, they look for weaknesses, people I care about, people who could be used against me. Then you should have thought about that before you took me home. I wrapped my arms around myself. But it doesn't matter now. I'm not anyone to you. I'm not your concern. He turned back, and the look on his face made my heart stutter. You're carrying my child, Riley. That makes you exactly my concern. The words hung in the air between us. I could have denied it, but what was the point? He already knew. Had probably known before he walked through my door. How long have you known? I asked quietly. My men reported your visit to the clinic 2 weeks ago. His expression was unreadable. I've been waiting to see if you'd tell me yourself. Why would I tell you? Anger flared hot in my chest. You're engaged to another woman. You disappeared without a word. What exactly was I supposed to do? Show up at your penthouse and announce you're going to be a father? Yes. The simple word was delivered with absolute conviction. That's exactly what you should have done. I don't even know you. Then let me tell you who I am. He crossed back to me, and this time I didn't retreat. My name is Roman Caruso. I'm 36 years old. I've been running my family's business since my father died 10 years ago. The engagement to Alessandra is political, a merger of territories. There's no love there. No relationship beyond strategic alliance. That doesn't make it better. I know. Something raw flashed across his face. But that night with you, Riley, that was real. That was the first real thing I'd felt in years. You looked at me and saw a man, not a name or a reputation or a useful connection, just me. And then you left. Because I had to. His hands came up to frame my face, and I should have pulled away but couldn't. Because getting close to me, being seen with me, it puts a target on your back. My world, Riley, it's not safe. It's not clean. And I couldn't bear the thought of you getting hurt because of me. So you were protecting me by leaving. I was trying to. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But then you got pregnant. And everything changed. I can handle this on my own. I don't doubt that. His smile was soft. You've built an empire? Riley, you're stronger than most men I know. But you shouldn't have to do this alone. That's my child, my responsibility, my... He stopped, his jaw tightening. Let me be part of this. Please. The please broke something in me. This powerful, dangerous man, asking instead of demanding, showing me a vulnerability I suspected he'd never shown anyone else. What about Alessandra? I asked. What about your engagement? I'll handle it. The steel returned to his voice. But Riley, you need to understand something. My world is complicated, dangerous. If you let me in, if you accept my protection, you're accepting all of it. The guards, the security, The restrictions. I won't risk you or our child. Our child. The way he said it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I need time, I said finally, to think, to figure out what this means. He nodded, but his hands didn't leave my face. You have until tomorrow. But Riley? Those men watching you? They're mine, for your protection. Don't try to lose them. Don't do anything that puts you at risk. Promise me. You can't just... Promise me. His eyes burned into mine. Please. Fine, I whispered. I promise. He leaned in and pressed a kiss to my forehead, the gesture achingly tender. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk. Figure this out together. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in my office with more questions than answers and the lingering warmth of his touch on my skin. I sank into my chair and placed both hands on my stomach. Tomorrow, I would make a decision about our future. But tonight, I let myself remember what it felt like to not be alone. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Roman's face, the intensity in his storm-gray eyes when he'd touched my stomach, the raw vulnerability when he'd said, "Please." This wasn't the distant stranger who'd disappeared after one night. This was a man claiming responsibility, asking for a chance. By morning, I'd made a list. Pros and cons, like I was evaluating a business proposal instead of deciding whether to let a Mafia boss into my life and my child's life. The cons column was longer, much longer, but the pros had weight that numbers couldn't capture. My phone rang at exactly 8 a.m. unknown number. Riley Adams, I answered, my voice crisp and professional despite the anxiety churning in my stomach. There's a car waiting outside your building. Roman's voice was warm, familiar. We should talk somewhere private, somewhere safe. I have a 10 o'clock meeting with investors. Reschedule it. Not a request. This is more important. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to assert my independence, to remind him that I didn't take orders from anyone. But he was right. This conversation couldn't happen in my office or over the phone. It required privacy, honesty, and time. Fine, I said. Give me 30 minutes. The black SUV waiting outside my apartment building was different from the one I'd noticed following me before. Newer, more expensive, with windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The driver was a mountain of a man who opened the rear door with practiced efficiency and a slight nod. Roman sat in the back, looking impossibly put together in a navy suit, despite the early hour. His eyes tracked over me with an intensity that made my breath catch, taking in my simple black dress, the slight swell of my stomach that was barely visible if you weren't looking for it. You look beautiful, he said softly as I slid in beside him. Don't. I fastened my seatbelt. Don't try to charm me. I'm here to talk about logistics, not to relive that night. Something flickered in his eyes. Hurt. Perhaps. But he nodded. Fair enough. We're going to my place. The penthouse where we met. It's secure. The drive-through morning traffic was silent. I kept my hands folded in my lap, trying not to notice how close he was sitting, how the scent of his cologne brought back memories of his hands on my skin, his voice murmuring my name in the darkness. The penthouse looked different in daylight. Less mysterious, more lived in. I noticed details I'd missed that night. Family photographs on the bookshelf, a well-worn leather armchair by the window, books in Italian stacked on the coffee table. Coffee? Roman asked, moving to the kitchen. Or is caffeine off limits now? 1 cup a day is fine. I perched on the edge of the sofa, maintaining distance. But I don't want coffee. I want answers. He poured himself an espresso from a machine that probably cost more than my first car and came to sit across from me. Not crowding, giving me space. The consideration felt deliberate, calculated. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Everything." I met his gaze steadily. "You want to be part of this baby's life? Then I need to understand exactly what that means. What you do, who you are, what dangers come with your world." He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his espresso cup. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "My family has been in New York for 4 generations. My great-grandfather came from Sicily with nothing, and built an empire through providing services others wouldn't. Protection, dispute resolution, access to goods and opportunities. My father expanded that empire, made it more sophisticated, more powerful. And when he died, I inherited it all." "You're talking about organized crime," I said flatly. "The Mafia. I'm talking about a business that operates outside traditional legal structures." His eyes never left mine. "Yes, some of what we do is illegal, but we also employ thousands of people, protect neighborhoods the police ignore, provide for families who have no other options." "You're justifying it. I'm explaining it." He leaned forward. "Riley, I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not. I won't apologize for the choices my family made, for the world I was born into. But I will promise you this. You and our child will never be touched by the violence. You'll be protected, shielded, kept separate from anything dangerous." "How can you promise that?" Frustration bled into my voice. "You just told me yesterday that being associated with you puts a target on my back." "It does." His expression hardened. "Which is why you need security. Guards, surveillance, protocols. My enemies will look for any weakness, any vulnerability. The moment they know about this baby, you become leverage." The word leverage made my blood run cold. I placed a protective hand over my stomach. "Who are these enemies?" I asked. "Other families who want my territory, business rivals, men who think they can take what's mine through force or intimidation." He stood, pacing to the window. "There's one in particular, Luca Marchetti. He controls the docks, runs weapons and drugs through the port. He's been pushing into my territory for months, testing boundaries. If he knew about you, about the baby." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "This is insane," I said, standing. "You're asking me to bring my child into a world where they could be used as leverage against you, where my life becomes about security protocols and constant fear." "No." He turned, crossing back to me with swift strides. "I'm asking you to trust me to keep you safe. Both of you. I have resources you can't imagine, Riley. Men who are loyal to me, who would die to protect what's mine. You wouldn't be vulnerable. You'd be untouchable. As long as I follow your rules. As long as you're smart." His hands came up to my shoulders, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you. There's a difference." "Is there?" I challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks the same." He was silent, his jaw tight. Then slowly, he released my shoulders and stepped back. "You're right," he said quietly. "I can't force you to accept my protection. I can't make you let me in. But Riley, I'm asking you to consider the alternative. You, alone, pregnant with a child that powerful people could use to hurt me. How long before Marchetti or someone like him figures it out? How long before you're approached, threatened, kidnapped?" The scenarios he painted made me nauseous. Or maybe that was just morning sickness. "You're trying to scare me." "I'm trying to make you understand reality." He moved closer again, his voice softening. "That night we spent together, Riley, it wasn't just physical for me. I know you think I'm some heartless criminal, but you made me feel human again. Made me remember what it was like to want something beyond power and territory. Pretty words, I said, but my voice wavered. True words. His hand came up to cup my face, and I should have pulled away but couldn't. I know I have no right to ask this. I know I disappeared, that I'm engaged to another woman, that my world is dangerous and complicated. But that baby you're carrying is mine. My blood. My legacy. I can't walk away from that, Riley. I won't. And Alessandra, the name tasted bitter on my tongue, will be handled. Steel entered his voice. The engagement was my father's arrangement, a merger of territories and business interests. There's no love there, no real relationship. It's a contract. Nothing more. Does she know that? He hesitated, and I had my answer. You need to end it, I said firmly, before we discuss anything else. I won't be the other woman, Roman. I won't raise a child in the shadow of your fiancé. Give me 1 week. His thumb traced my cheekbone. 1 week to handle Alessandra and the political fallout. Then I'm yours, completely. No divided loyalties, no complications. I'm not asking you to be mine. Aren't you? His smile was soft, knowing. Riley, you felt it too that night. This connection between us, this pull. It scared you as much as it scared me. But we can't run from it anymore. Not with a child binding us together. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. What is it? I asked. Marchetti. He typed something quickly. He's made a move on one of my warehouses in Red Hook. I need to handle this. Go, I said, suddenly exhausted. We'll talk more later. He hesitated, clearly torn between business and staying with me. Then he leaned in and pressed a kiss to my forehead. The same gesture from last night, achingly tender. My driver will take you wherever you need to go. Marco will stay with you as security. I don't need... Please. That word again, the one that undid me. Just for today, until I know Marchetti isn't making a larger play. Please, Riley. I nodded, too tired to argue. He left, and I sank back onto the sofa, my hand on my stomach. Marco appeared in the doorway, the mountain from the car, and positioned himself by the entrance with the silent efficiency of a professional. This was my life now. Security, protocols, a mafia boss claiming me and my unborn child as his. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something that scared me even more. Relief that I wasn't alone anymore. And the beginning of hope that maybe, just maybe, Roman Caruso was exactly what we needed. The week that followed was surreal. Marco became my shadow, a silent presence who somehow managed to be unobtrusive despite being built like a tank. He drove me to meetings, waited outside conference rooms, checked every restaurant before I entered. At first, I resented the intrusion. By day 3, I'd stopped noticing him. What I couldn't stop noticing was Roman. He called every evening, always at 7, asking about my day with a genuine interest that caught me off guard. Did I eat enough? Was the morning sickness improving? Did I need anything? The conversation started professional and ended intimate, his voice dropping to that low register that made my skin prickle with awareness. I'm ending it with Alessandra tomorrow, he told me on day 5. Her father is arranging a meeting. It won't be pleasant. Will there be consequences? I asked, curled up on my sofa with herbal tea and a book I wasn't really reading. Yes. He didn't sugarcoat it. Marco Vitale won't take kindly to his daughter being rejected, but I've been building alternative alliances, shoring up support. It'll cost me, but it's worth it. For the baby. Silence stretched between us. Then, quietly, For you, Riley. For both of you. The words settled in my chest, warm and terrifying. On day 6, everything changed. I was leaving the office late, against Marco's advice, but I'd had a crisis with our lead developer and couldn't leave until it was resolved. The street was quieter than usual. Most of the neighboring businesses already closed for the night. Marco was bringing the car around when they appeared. 3 men, emerging from the shadows between buildings. Not obviously threatening, but something in their posture, the way they positioned themselves to block my path, made my instincts scream danger. Riley Adams? The one in front was tall, thin, with cold eyes that reminded me of a snake. We need to talk. I stepped back toward the building entrance. I don't know you, but we know you. He smiled, showing too many teeth. Luca Marchetti sends his regards. He's very interested in your relationship with Roman Caruso. My blood turned to ice. I don't have a relationship with Roman Caruso. No? The man's gaze dropped meaningfully to my stomach. That's not what our sources say. Pregnant with the heir to the Caruso empire. That's quite the accomplishment for a tech CEO. Before I could respond, Marco materialized between us, his hand inside his jacket where I knew he kept his gun. 2 more men appeared behind him. Backup I hadn't even noticed was there. The lady has nothing to say to you. Marco's voice was granite. Walk away. We're just talking. The thin man held up his hands, all innocence. No harm intended. But Mr. Marchetti wanted Ms. Adams to know that he's available if she ever needs. Alternative protection. Mr. Caruso's enemies have a way of meeting unfortunate ends. The threat was clear. Marco's hand tightened on his weapon. Now, Marco growled. The 3 men retreated, but not before the thin one tossed a business card at my feet. It landed face up. Luca Marchetti, import, export, with a phone number in embossed gold. Marco didn't let me pick it up. He hustled me into the car the moment it appeared, then got on his phone, speaking rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. Are you hurt? He asked when he ended the call. No. My hands were shaking. Just scared. Mr. Caruso is on his way to your apartment. He'll meet us there. The drive felt endless. I kept seeing those cold eyes, hearing the casual way the man had mentioned my pregnancy. They knew. Marchetti knew. And if he knew, how many others did? Roman was waiting outside my building when we arrived, flanked by 4 men I didn't recognize. His expression was thunderous, but when he saw me, it shifted to something almost gentle. Are you okay? He pulled me into his arms before I could answer, his hand cradling the back of my head. Did they touch you? No, Marco was there. I pulled back to look at him. But they knew about the baby, Roman. How did they know? His jaw tightened. Inside. We'll talk inside. My apartment suddenly felt too small with Roman and Marco and 2 additional guards. Roman did a sweep of every room before finally allowing me to sit on my own sofa. When were you going to tell me you were working late? He asked, his voice controlled but edged with anger. I don't report my schedule to you. You do now. He crouched in front of me, his hands on my knees. Riley, this is exactly what I warned you about. Marchetti is escalating. He's making moves against me on multiple fronts, and now he knows about you. How? I demanded. I've been careful. I haven't told anyone. Someone at the clinic. Marco spoke from his position by the door. We're investigating, but there's a nurse who has gambling debts. Marchetti probably paid her for information on Roman's known associates. I felt violated. My medical information, sold to a criminal. This is why you need to let me protect you properly, Roman said, his hands tightening on my knees. No more working late. No more going anywhere without full security. No more risks. I can't live like that. You can and you will. His voice was steel. Because the alternative is Marchetti getting his hands on you, using you and our baby to destroy me. Is that what you want? Of course not. Tears pricked my eyes. Hormones, fear, frustration all swirling together. But I have a company to run, Roman. I have responsibilities. Then run it from somewhere secure. He stood, pacing my small living room. I have a property in Westchester. Estate, full security, completely isolated. You can work remotely, have your team come to you for meetings. You want to lock me away. I want to keep you alive. His control finally cracked. God damn it, Riley. Marchetti doesn't make idle threats. If he's targeting you, it's because he sees you as my weakness. And he's right. You are. The admission hung in the air between us. I ended it with Alessandra today, he continued, his voice rough. Told her father the engagement was off. It cost me 3 warehouses, 2 shipping routes, and the Vitale family's support. Marco Vitale is furious, making alliances with my enemies. Everything is falling apart, and the only thing I care about is keeping you safe. I stood, moving to him. Roman, I love you. The words tumbled out like he couldn't hold them back anymore. I've loved you since that first night, since you looked at me and saw a man instead of a monster, since you challenged me and didn't flinch when you learned the truth. I love you, Riley Adams, and I will burn down this entire city before I let anyone hurt you. My breath caught. You can't love me. We barely know each other. I know you're strong and brilliant and stubborn as hell. His hands framed my face. I know you're carrying my child. I know that when I'm with you, I feel human instead of like a weapon. And I know that if something happened to you, it would destroy me. This is crazy. Yes. He pressed his forehead to mine. But it's true. And Riley, I think you feel it too. This pull between us. This inevitability. He was right. God help me. He was right. Somewhere between his disappearance and his reappearance, between fear and anger and these impossible circumstances, I'd fallen for this dangerous, complicated man. What if I can't do this? I whispered. What if I can't live in your world? Then we'll build a new one. His thumb traced my cheekbone. One where you're safe, and our child can grow up without fear. I'll do whatever it takes, Riley. Whatever you need. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll handle Marchetti. I met his storm gray eyes steadily. Because I'm not running, and I'm not hiding. If we're going to do this, if we're going to build something together, then you need to eliminate the threat. Completely. Something dark and satisfied flashed across his face. Done. And promise me you won't try to control me. Security? Fine. Protection? I understand. But I still make my own decisions about my company, my life, our child. You're my equal, Riley. His voice was fierce. My partner. I'll protect you, but I won't cage you. You have my word. I took a deep breath, placing my hand over his where it rested on my face. Then, yes, to Westchester, to security, to building something together. But Roman, if you ever lie to me, if you ever make me feel like Derek made me feel, trapped and controlled, I'm gone, baby or no baby. I'm not him. His voice was absolute. I'll never be him. Prove it. He kissed me then, fierce and possessive and achingly tender. And when we broke apart, both breathless, he whispered against my lips. Move in with me tonight. Let me keep you safe. Let me love you. Yes, I breathed, and sealed both our fates. The Westchester estate was nothing like the Tribeca penthouse. Where that had been sleek and modern, this was sprawling and fortified. 20 acres of manicured ground surrounded by walls that looked decorative, but were reinforced with steel. Guards patrolled the perimeter, cameras covered every angle. And the house itself was a masterpiece of security disguised as luxury. Roman gave me the tour personally, his hand at the small of my back as we moved through rooms that seemed designed for a family. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A sunroom overlooking gardens that probably bloomed beautifully in spring. And upstairs, a nursery already being prepared, painted in soft sage green with furniture being assembled by workers who nodded respectfully as we passed. "You're very confident I'd say yes," I observed, running my hand over the beautiful cherrywood crib. "Hopeful," he corrected, pulling me against his chest from behind, his hand settling protectively over my stomach. But I would have kept preparing regardless. This is my child's room, Riley, whether you were here or not. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel cherished. The master bedroom was stunning, all rich woods and soft linens, with windows overlooking the grounds. My clothes from the apartment had already been unpacked and hung in a closet the size of my old bedroom. My laptop was set up on a desk in the corner, along with my favorite mug and the framed photo of my parents I kept on my nightstand. "How did you—" I sent people to pack while we were talking. Roman moved to pour himself a whiskey from the sidebar. "I wasn't taking any chances on you changing your mind. That's presumptuous. That's practical." He took a sip, watching me over the rim. "Riley, I need you to understand something. Moving you here, it's not just about protection. It's about showing everyone in my world that you're mine, that you're untouchable. Marchetti made his move because he thought you were vulnerable, a secret I was trying to hide. But if you're here, in my home, wearing my ring—" "Your ring?" I interrupted. He set down his glass and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a ring that stole my breath, a large emerald-cut diamond, easily 4 carats, flanked by smaller stones in a platinum setting. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said quickly. "Not yet, but I am asking you to wear this, to let everyone know you're under my protection, that you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone." Poor choice of words. He took the ring from the box. "You're mine in the way that matters. I'm yours. You're mine. We're building something together. This ring tells my world that hurting you means war with me. Will you wear it?" I should have said no. Should have insisted on maintaining some independence, some separation. But as he slid the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit, of course, I couldn't deny how right it felt. "Yes," I whispered. His smile was pure triumph. He pulled me close and kissed me, deep and possessive, his hand cradling my face with that gentleness that always undid me. The first 2 weeks at the estate fell into a rhythm. I worked remotely, my team adapting surprisingly well to virtual meetings. Roman left for the city each morning but returned by evening, always checking on me first thing, his hands going immediately to my growing stomach. The baby became real to both of us during a routine ultrasound at 16 weeks. Dr. Chen came to the estate, Roman insisted, and we watched together as our child moved on the screen, tiny hands and feet already perfectly formed. "Would you like to know the sex?" Dr. Chen asked. Roman and I exchanged glances. "Yes," we said together. "It's a boy." Dr. Chen smiled. "A healthy baby boy." Roman's hand tightened on mine, and when I looked at him, I saw tears in his eyes. "A son," he breathed. "We're having a son." That night, he made love to me with a reverence that made my chest ache. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his hand splayed protectively over my stomach. "I want to name him after my father," he said quietly. "Antonio, but only if you agree. Antonio Caruso." I tested the name. "It's strong. I like it." "Antonio Adams Caruso," he corrected. "I want him to have your name, too, to know he comes from strength on both sides." The gesture meant more than any ring. Okay, Antonio Adams Caruso. But the peace couldn't last. 3 weeks into my stay at the estate, Roman came home tense, his jaw tight with barely controlled fury. He poured himself a drink, unusual for him before dinner, and downed it in one swallow. "What happened?" I asked, setting aside my laptop. Marchetti made a move on one of my legitimate businesses, the restaurant in Little Italy, Antonio's, named for my father. He had his men trash it, send a message. Roman poured another drink. 3 of my people were hospitalized. I stood, moving to him. "I'm sorry." "It's escalating." He turned to face me. He's pushing, testing how far he can go before I retaliate. "And Riley, there's something else." The tone of his voice made my stomach clench. "What?" "He's been asking about you. Specifically. Wants to know if you're still running Next Gen. If you're visible. If you're vulnerable." Roman's hands clenched into fists. "He's planning something. I can feel it. Then end this." I moved closer. "You said you'd handle him." "Handle him." "It's not that simple. Marchetti has alliances." "I don't care about his alliances." My voice was steel. "I care about keeping our son safe. About building a life where we're not constantly looking over our shoulders. You told me you loved me, Roman. You told me you'd protect us. So do it." Something shifted in his expression. Pride, perhaps, or fierce satisfaction that I was fighting instead of cowering. "There's a meeting tomorrow night," he said slowly. "All the families, neutral ground. Marchetti will be there. If I make a move against him publicly, with witnesses, it sends a message that can't be misinterpreted. Then do it. Riley, if I do this, if I eliminate Marchetti, there will be consequences. Blood, violence, possibly war with his allies. It won't be clean or easy. Nothing worth having ever is." I placed my hand over his heart. "But our son deserves better than growing up in fear. We both do." He kissed me then, hard and possessive. "You're extraordinary, you know that? Most women would be begging me to avoid confrontation, to keep the peace. I'm not most women." I pulled back to meet his eyes. "And you're not most men. You're Roman Caruso. So be Roman Caruso. Be the man everyone fears. Protect what's yours." "Tomorrow night," he promised. "I'll handle it." But the universe had other plans. I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of breaking glass. Before I could process what was happening, Roman was out of bed, a gun appearing in his hand from somewhere I hadn't known he kept one. "Stay here," he commanded, moving to the door. "Lock it behind me." "Roman, now Riley." The authority in his voice brooked no argument. I locked the door as he disappeared into the hallway, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, when I heard the gunshots. 3 quick pops, then silence. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming, the other hand protective over my stomach. Our son. Our baby. This was the reality of Roman's world. Violence at 3 a.m. guns instead of negotiations. When the door handle turned, I nearly sobbed with relief to hear Roman's voice. "Riley, it's me. Open up." He was unharmed, but there was blood on his shirt, not his, judging by how calmly he moved. Behind him, Marco was dragging someone, down the hallway. "What happened?" I demanded. "Marchetti sent a message." Roman's voice was cold fury. 3 men tried to breach the south entrance. They're dealt with. Dealt with. The euphemism made me nauseous. I mean they won't be threatening you again." He pulled me into his arms. "Riley, I'm sorry. This is exactly what I wanted to prevent. I'm fine. The baby's fine." I pulled back. "But Roman, this proves my point. Waiting, being diplomatic, it's not working. Marchetti isn't going to stop." "No," he agreed. He's not. Then tomorrow night, at that meeting, you end this. Permanently. His eyes searched mine. You understand what you're asking me to do? I understand that I'm choosing our son's safety over whatever moral qualms I might have about your methods. I placed my hand on his cheek. I love you, Roman Caruso. All of you, including the parts that are dangerous and ruthless. But I need you to be those things now. For us. He pulled me close, his face buried in my hair. I love you too, he whispered. More than power, more than territory, more than anything. You and our son are my world now. Then protect your world. The next evening, Roman dressed for the meeting in a black suit that made him look like death in expensive tailoring. He kissed me goodbye at the door, his hands lingering on my stomach. If I'm not back by midnight, he said quietly, Marco has instructions. He'll get you somewhere safe. You'll be back. I refused to consider the alternative. And when you are, we'll start planning our future. A real future, without threats. Promise. He kissed me one more time, then left. I waited in our bedroom, unable to work or read or do anything but pace and worry. The hours crawled by. 9 o'clock, 10, 11. At 11:47, I heard the car. Roman walked in looking exhausted but victorious. There was a split in his lip and his knuckles were bruised, but he was smiling. It's done, he said simply. Marchetti won't be a problem anymore. I didn't ask for details, didn't need them. Instead, I went to him, wrapped my arms around him, and held on tight. We're safe? I whispered. We're safe. His arms tightened around me. You, me, and our son. No more threats, no more fear. I pulled back to look at him. Then marry me. He blinked, clearly surprised. What? Marry me, I repeated. Not because of the baby or because of protection or because it's strategic. Marry me because I love you and I want to build this life with you. Officially, completely. No reservations. His smile was brilliant. Yes. God, yes, Riley. I'll marry you tomorrow if you want. Let's wait until after Antonio is born. I placed his hand on my stomach. I want to be able to fit into a proper wedding dress. He laughed and kissed me, and for the first time since this impossible journey began, I felt truly, completely at peace. We were going to be okay. All three of us. The remaining months of my pregnancy passed in a blur of wedding planning, business expansion, and what Roman called strategic consolidation. With Marchetti gone, the power vacuum had been filled quickly, by Roman, who moved with ruthless efficiency to absorb territories and alliances that had once been contested. But something had changed in how he operated. Now, when he made decisions, he consulted me first. What do you think? He asked one evening, showing me a proposed partnership with a shipping company. The DeLuca family wants to merge their port operations with mine. It's legitimate business, but it gives us control of 80% of cargo coming through New York. I studied the documents with the same analytical mind I brought to NextGen's board meetings. What's their cybersecurity infrastructure like? Because if you control that much cargo, you become a target for digital attacks. Let me have my team audit their systems first. If they're vulnerable, we negotiate better terms or walk away. Roman's smile was proud. See, this is why you're perfect. I think about physical security. You think about digital. Together, we're unstoppable. He wasn't wrong. Over the following weeks, we started to merge our expertise in ways that benefited both his world and mine. NextGen developed a proprietary security system for Roman's legitimate businesses, restaurants, shipping, real estate holdings, making them virtually impenetrable to both physical and digital threats. In return, Roman's connections opened doors for NextGen that venture capital never could. Governor Chen wants to meet about a state contract for cybersecurity infrastructure. my CFO told me during a video call. Apparently, someone very influential recommended us. I glanced at Roman, who was working at his desk across our bedroom, and caught his slight smile. Someone influential indeed. We married in a private ceremony at the estate when I was 8 months pregnant, my stomach so large I could barely see my feet. The dress was custom-made, flowing cream silk that accommodated my bump, and Roman's eyes filled with tears when he saw me walk down the makeshift aisle in our garden. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he whispered as I reached him. The ceremony was small, just Antonio Russo and his wife Gabriella, Marco and a handful of Roman's most trusted men, Dr. Chen, who'd become a friend, and my assistant Sarah, who'd flown in from the city. No press, no spectacle, just us pledging our lives to each other with our son moving restlessly in my belly. "I, Riley Adams, take you, Roman Caruso, to be my husband," I said, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "I promise to stand beside you as your equal, to challenge you when you're wrong, to support you when you're right, and to build an empire with you that our son will be proud to inherit." Roman's vows were equally unconventional. "I, Roman Caruso, take you, Riley Adams, to be my wife. I promise to protect you fiercely, love you completely, and defer to your brilliance in all things technological. I promise to be the partner you deserve, the father our son needs, and the man who's worthy of the extraordinary gift you've given me, yourself." When he kissed me, sealing our vows, I felt our son kick strongly, as though approving of the union. 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, my water broke. Roman went from peacefully sleeping to fully alert in seconds, his training kicking in as he called Dr. Chen, assembled the security team, and had me in the car within 10 minutes. But despite his outward calm, I could see the fear in his eyes. "What if something goes wrong?" he asked as we drove to the private hospital he'd arranged. "What if—" "Nothing will go wrong." I squeezed his hand through another contraction. "We've got the best medical team money can buy, and I'm strong. We're both strong." Labor was long and brutal, 14 hours of pain that made me curse Roman's name more than once. But he stayed with me the entire time, holding my hand, letting me crush his fingers, whispering encouragement in both English and Italian. "You're doing amazing, amore mio," he murmured, wiping sweat from my forehead. "So strong, so perfect. Our son is almost here." When Antonio finally arrived, his first cry filling the delivery room, I watched Roman's face transform. All the hardness, all the danger, all the calculated ruthlessness, it melted away as the doctor placed our son in his arms. "Hello, Antonio," Roman whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I'm your papa, and I promise you you'll never know fear. You'll be loved and protected and given every opportunity. You're the prince of 2 empires, little one, and we're going to make the world safe for you." I'd never loved him more than in that moment. Recovery was easier than expected, helped by round-the-clock nurses and Dr. Chen's careful monitoring. Antonio was a good baby, alert, healthy, with Roman's dark hair and my green eyes. Watching Roman with him was a revelation. This dangerous man, this Mafia boss who'd killed to protect us, was utterly gentle with our son. He changed diapers, handled midnight feedings, and spent hours just holding Antonio and murmuring to him in Italian. "You're a natural," I observed one night, watching him rock our son to sleep. "I'm motivated." He looked up, his expression soft. "This is everything I never knew I wanted, Riley. You, him, this family. I'd burn the world down to keep it safe." "Hopefully that won't be necessary," I said dryly. But 6 weeks later, it almost was. A rival family, the Constantinos, who'd been allied with Marchetti, made a move against one of Roman's shipping operations. It was bold, aggressive, and clearly designed to test whether fatherhood had made him soft. "They need to be reminded who they're dealing with," Roman said, his voice cold as he reviewed the intelligence reports. "Marco, assemble the—" "Wait." I looked up from where I was nursing Antonio. "Before you go in with guns, let me try something." Roman raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "The Constantinos run their operations through a logistics company, right? Let me have my team look into their digital infrastructure. If we can find vulnerabilities, we can shut them down without a single shot fired." His smile was slow and predatory. "I love the way you think." NextGen's cybersecurity team worked through the night. By morning, we had access to every digital system the Constantinos used. Shipping manifests, financial records, communications, everything. "We could destroy them," I told Roman, showing him what we'd found. "Leak their tax evasion to the IRS, expose their smuggling operations to the FBI, crash their entire network. Or, he prompted, "or we make them an offer. They back off completely, apologize for the attack, and in exchange, we don't destroy everything they've built. But we keep this access, as insurance. They step out of line again, and we pull the trigger." Roman pulled me into his arms, careful not to disturb Antonio, who was sleeping against my shoulder. "You're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is better than violence. It's control." The Constantinos accepted the terms within hours of receiving our proposal. And word spread quickly through Roman's world. The new Mrs. Caruso wasn't just the boss's wife. She was a power in her own right. Board meetings became family affairs. I'd video conference with NextGen executives while Antonio played on a blanket nearby, and Roman worked at his own laptop, managing his empire. We'd consult each other constantly. "Should we invest in this startup? What do you think about expanding into biotech? The Russo family wants to partner on a development deal. Your thoughts?" We became known as a unit. Riley and Roman Caruso, the tech CEO and the reformed Mafia boss, ruling twin empires that no one dared to challenge. My company's value tripled as Roman's connections opened doors. His legitimate businesses flourished under my technological improvements. And together, we built something neither of us could have built alone. Antonio's first birthday party was attended by both Silicon Valley executives and old family mob bosses, a mixing of worlds that should have been awkward, but somehow worked. Our son held court in Roman's arms, clearly already comfortable being the center of attention. "What are you thinking?" Roman asked, finding me watching from the edge of the celebration. "That a year ago I was alone and terrified, running from a man I thought I could trust," I said honestly. "And now I'm here, with you, with our son, with this life we've built. It's surreal. Regrets?" His voice was careful. "Not a single one." I moved into his arms, the three of us together. "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, where we're both supposed to be." He kissed me, tender and possessive. "I love you, Mrs. Caruso. Thank you for running into that event. Thank you for being brave enough to let me in. Thank you for our son, and this life, and this future." "I love you too," I whispered. "My dangerous, complicated, perfect husband." As the sun set over our estate, our guests mingling, and Antonio laughing at something his godfather Marco was doing, I realized something profound. I'd spent years building an empire alone, thinking independence was strength. But true strength was this: partnership, trust, two people building something together that was greater than the sum of its parts. Roman Caruso had claimed me that first night, but I'd claimed him right back, and together we'd created something unstoppable, an empire of technology and power, a family forged in fire, a love that no one would ever dare to challenge.